So, hello and welcome to the latest of the Business Spotlight interview series. I'm delighted today to be joined by Paul Andrews from Cage Technologies. Hi, Paul. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to tell our story.
No problem at all. Looking forward to hearing about it. Looking forward to it. So, so if we can start with a little bit of background about yourself and the business. So, if you can just give us an understanding what Cage Technologies, is and your story, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, well, it's a long story. How long have you got? Yeah. So this has been a journey, and a long one, and quite an exciting and interesting one. So I studied mechanical engineering. I was always a bit of an innovator. Had always had lots of ideas. Some of them good, some of them not so good. But as you get older, you learn to filter out what the good ones are and what the not so good ones are. And in my 20s, I had an idea for an engine concept that was novel, based on a sort of four-stroke piston engine technology, but done in a different way. In my 40s, so a long time later, having thought about it for 13 years, I built a prototype in my shed at home. So we're fortunate we live on a farm, we've got space. Went on a machining course, bought some lathes and milling machines and made an engine. First real thing I'd ever made, and amazingly it worked. And that was the start of the sort of trigger of the process that has taken us to Cage Technologies. So around the time we did the first engine prototypes, we set up Oak Tech, and Oak Tech evolved into a research and development business, focusing on two areas. Initially on starting to develop this engine concept as a gas engine, because I saw the opportunity for gas. There was nobody doing sophisticated gas engines of the type that we are. This was 20 or more years ago. And then almost through separate interests of motorsport, we started developing hybrid systems and battery systems for automotive to compete in motorsport. And then the two things came together sort of in 2013 when we looked at doing a range extender engine generator for an automotive application. So that was the first sort of seed of the current journey, where we actually started to use the background work we'd done to get funding from R&D funding from government. That allowed us to bring in people with experience and talent. And we started then focusing on the development of gas engines, based on my original concept, which we called Pulsar. We got to quite a late stage with the development of that engine. We built about 30 prototypes. It actually worked remarkably well, but we saw its sort of opportunity as a steady speed engine, or single speed engine to power generators, or a variable speed engine within a small power range, like an industrial engine, to power other pieces of industrial equipment. So, but we always face the challenge of, it's very, very expensive to industrialize a novel engine concept. And as we were developing this, the world was starting to move away from engines towards electrification. So the investment and the interest in the investment community in engines was on the wane. But then the big the big platform from which we were able to do what we're doing now came about through the VW emissions scandal, where the diesel engine suddenly became sort of publicly unpopular and seen as a source of emissions, and it created the interest in the industrial space for engines that aren't powered by diesel. So we did a lot of work on gas engines. We were in a very good position. So what that enabled us to do was to, rather than industrialize the novel engine concept, take loads of the technology we've developed around that, which is all about combustion control, It's effectively digital control of engines, but in a very sophisticated and specific way, and apply that to conventional engine platforms. So we were fortunate throughout this process to continue to get funding, but totally focused on gas fuels. So we initially did work with LPG.
Right.
We then looked at biogas because I've always seen a massive opportunity in global markets to power off-grid communities with biogas from waste. So we applied the technology to biogas engines and built some really effective and unique small biogas engines. And then latterly, sort of probably 2017, started looking at hydrogen. So anticipating the net zero sort of movement that is now sort of in full swing, and how we could apply net zero fuels to engines. So again, the same technology platform, the same engine platforms, but done in a slightly different way for hydrogen. So in that period of time, we've developed this range of gas engines. Initially all done as the original business Oaktech, but at the start of 2022, we launched Cage Technologies, which is the commercial business that is now effectively selling and commercializing the technologies and the products that Oaktech developed over that period of time.
Okay, fantastic. And so obviously a great story about pivoting and reacting to what's going on in the bigger marketplace, and a little bit of innovation, and then obviously trying to forward plan and get where you are today. So what's the big drive at the moment? Is it the hydrogen stuff? Is that what's or is it more the gas?
Yeah, so not particularly hydrogen. So the focus on everything we do is emissions and efficiency. So we effectively differentiate ourselves from other engines, because the number one driver of the business is reducing emissions. So there's two areas where the emissions performance of the engines have benefits. So one is air quality. So by reducing tailpipe emissions, we can, and particularly on construction sites where there's lots of diesel emissions, benefit local air quality. And then the second is net zero, so reducing carbon emissions. So from relatively small 10, 15, 20% carbon reduction from fuels like LPG to net zero with hydrogen. So we've actually got three parallel sort of engine technologies running side by side, and it's in some cases integrated where we can run one engine on two fuels. So for example, LPG and hydrogen. And there's markets for all of those fuels. We actually think the biggest market, or we're fairly convinced the biggest market, is biogas, because there's 1% of the world's rural population have no electricity, and they're agricultural communities. They produce agricultural waste. It's very easy to turn that into a clean biogas fuel, and we designed engines to actually just plug into the gas production system, which is anaerobic digestion, and produce power. So there's a potential market for hundreds of thousands or millions of that type of small engine to provide power to rural communities.
Wow. So that's, and you see that as the big opportunity in growing the business kind of globally, I guess.
So the business is growing in two directions. One is domestic markets, and that is focused on LPG and hydrogen. LPG for air quality, hydrogen for net zero, and then what we're developing is one technology solution. For example, a generator that you can plug in LPG when hydrogen isn't available. If hydrogen is available, you just switch it over to hydrogen, so the same machine runs on either fuel. But either way, it's massively cleaner than an equivalent diesel engine. So even running on LPG, our engines are 95% lower emissions, so that they reduce the emissions by 95% over a current sort of certified emissions standard diesel engine. So the emissions benefits are massive, and it produces the same power.
Yeah.
And with LPG, it uses a fuel that is actually currently cheaper than diesel. So we have that market in the UK and Europe and Western economies that's primarily focused on replacing diesel with these clean fuels. And then the other markets that we're active in, which is Africa, India, and Latin America, but with the same opportunities mirrored throughout a lot of Asian countries. We are focusing initially on biogas, and then in actual fact, the two technologies can overlap, so we can sell LPG engines into Africa and India, for example, and starting to sell biogas engines in small volumes to customers in the UK.
Right.
So we are genuinely producing or developing global products.
Yeah. Wow. Long journey, but starting to pay real fruition from all the investment and time and energy that you've put into it. So yeah, that's great to hear. So you mentioned you incorporated the cage technology to become becomes more commercially viable. So you've seen like very strong growth and trying to scale the business at quite a fast pace, would you say, at the moment?
Yeah, so the big sort of challenge now at the moment is raising the finance to grow the business. We're lucky that we've got some really strong, partners with global corporations. So we're quite well positioned to raise that money, but we have to raise it in the right way to enable us to follow our own roadmap without becoming sucked into somebody else's, sort of maybe less holistic vision. So our determination is to actually achieve the end game, which is to get thousands and hundreds of thousands of engines out into the global marketplace. I mean, we won't obviously or may not take that all the way, but get it to a position where that is going to happen. So we want to work with impact investors who have the same vision, strategic investors who are working on the same journey through different ways. So we currently have very good partnerships in the UK with some of the big suppliers to the construction sector, who are embracing the technology and helping us develop that commercial roadmap. And then we work with the company called Sistema Bio, who are based in Mexico, but actually, sorry, somebody. So they have exponential growth in the small biogas space. They're active in 20 different countries, widely in Africa and in India. When I first started working with them, they had 3,000 anaerobic digesters on the ground. They're now making 12,000 a month. So, and that's in the space of 3 years. So they are growing massively, and potentially a large proportion of, say 10 to 20% of those anaerobic digesters need generators. And at the moment, they don't have generator product to supply with those to the standard that they need. And our technology provides that solution. So we're working with them to, as a partnership, to develop the product that their markets need.
Wow. Yeah, fantastic. So I was going to ask, one of the questions I always ask, what makes you stand out from other businesses in your sector? But would I be right in saying there's very, very little? I mean, is there anyone else doing this kind of technology? You would kind of feel like you're innovating and kind of leading the way in this, pioneering it.
Yeah, I think certainly the way we've done it, we are, pretty unique. Our engines are, so there are biogas engines available in some of these developing markets.
Sure.
The customer has tested all the different engines available, and ours are 50 to 60% more fuel efficient than anything else they've tested. Sure. And that's because of the way we use. Our engineers are all from high-level automotive, motorsport. The things that the UK are good at, and they understand how to get the very best out of engines and fuels. And they've optimized the combustion system in the engine to be incredibly efficient and incredibly clean.
Mm.
Most of the people making biogas engines just make a cheap functional engine that doesn't have to comply with any emission standards, and that just does the job and doesn't do it very well. So what we are working with our partners to achieve is the sophisticated combustion control, the reliability, yet at a price the customer can afford, because developing markets, have relatively low income, and we have to make a product that's affordable. And there's a lot of support to enable us to do that from organisations such as IKEA Foundation, Gates Foundation, Shell Foundation, World Bank. There's lots of initiatives that will help on that growth journey.
Right. Good, great stuff. I guess, so what's the business side of the journey been like for you? Obviously, you talked about incorporating a couple of years ago. Obviously, you've been doing and working in this field for a number of years. How has that journey changed over the last few years for you and the business?
It's been, that's one of the great challenges, is growing a team, growing your resource, funding it all, doing it in a progressive way that doesn't destabilize. One of the things that we've developed in the business is a really good culture where everybody gets on. There's no tension at work. Everybody's got the same goals and aim, and they want to make a difference. And as a result, it's a nice environment to work in. But you don't want to, as you grow the team, you've got to find people who have that same vision and want to work and have the same sense of adventure, because the business is, it is high risk, because we're trying to get from small to quite big very quickly. So we've got to manage all those sort of transitional phases with the people and the other resources. We're lucky we work from a farm, and we've got all the old farm buildings converted into workshops and labs and offices and meeting rooms, and we've been able to do that quite progressively. That has been put a lot of cost burden onto the business.
Sure. How big is the team then?
So the team's around 12 people at the moment. We're just recruiting technicians.
Right.
We're recruiting a finance director. So we're looking for those people at the moment. At the moment we've got 10 people. Everyone's doing 2 or 3 jobs. So we're going to have to bring in a sales team, a commercial team. So
how do you go about? You talk about creating the culture, the culture that you like. How have you gone about? What do you think is key to driving that culture and allowing people to work?
So I've always picked the people I want to work with. So I've built relationships over a period of time and identified people, and I think they would be good people. And they, and then you work with one person, and they say, well, there's somebody else here that likes what we're doing and are interested. So it's a lot of it. Everything has been done by word of mouth and by working with people I know, and people from my own family work in the business. So I've got, again, the traditional view is never work with your friends or your family, and I go completely against that. I work with people I know and like and get on with.
Good. So values are important to you in terms of, you talked about the value, you've got a business that's based on a really strong vision that's, got a huge amount of value behind it, or values, you know what I mean, in terms of doing a good, changing the world in that way. So I guess that's part and parcel of what someone needs to be bought into as well when they join. They've got to feel the why is as important as the how and the what, the how and the when.
Yeah, I mean that's absolutely true. And another thing I've always been told is, never say to an investor you're not interested in being rich. Well, I'm not. I just want I want a comfortable life like everybody else does. But I'm not personally interested in making lots of money. But I am absolutely dedicated to making a really successful business, and for a business to be successful, it has to make money. But it's not. But my drive is not. It's not. It's having the satisfaction of having done a good job rather than making lots of personal money. I like cars, but I've no ambition to drive around in a big, expensive, fancy car.
No, success and wealth are not always financially driven, are they?
No, no.
There's bigger things to work,
I actually think the world is more. A lot of people are now moving a bit more in that direction, whereas the having to look at the environment and the future for the kids and feeding people and all the things that the world needs to do to sustain itself. And
I guess the last few years people have had a lot of time in certain circumstances to reflect on a lot of elements of their life and how suddenly things can change in an instant, and what are the real drivers of success and happiness, and people's, like I say, I think there's probably a connection there in terms of people's changing mindset about it's not always about how much money you've got, it's about relationships you've got, and the family and the connections that you have can drive so much more contentment and happiness than having a big house with lots and lots of money. Do you know what I mean? So wealth.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
No, great stuff. Okay, so as you've kind of gone through your business journey, what are the biggest learnings you've found or had since being a business owner, would you say?
There's a lot, but when I started off, I thought, I had all these great ideas. I thought I could do it all myself, and then I very quickly realised when I started working with people who'd, come from different environments and got a wealth of experience, how valuable and experience is, and how capable, those, what the capabilities that experience brings. And absolutely the importance now of having a team of people who are mutually sort of supportive and bring different things into the pot. And that is something I appreciate a lot, and I think it is that whole thing about trying to work in an environment that isn't too stressed. So actually make the effort to have a low stress culture, because I think people are a lot more productive if they're not under stress, even though our business is is stressful just by the fact that we're growing so quickly and everyone's worked so hard. And I think it's absolutely important the whole sort of building of relationships, sort of long term, communicating with people. If people send you an email, and I was late for starting this meeting, and I apologise, but it is. I do really think if people make the effort to want to talk to you, you should always respond and communicate and try and build relationships. And you never know where conversations and relationships and just being nice to people, where that might lead you. I'm continually surprised by the outcomes of off the cuff conversations or chance meetings. But so there's a whole load of learning. I think another key thing is just focus on what you're good at and try not to do everything.
Become very, very good at one thing rather than average at lots of things, I think is a
I set out trying to be a brilliant engineer, but I've now got brilliant engineers working for me, and I realised that they're in a different league to and some of that is a lot of that is through experience, but also through mindset and the way people look at different things. I have lots of ideas, but I've got really good people who can implement them.
Which is absolutely. A lot of great entrepreneurs and business owners are like that. They have the idea, and then they bring in. What they realise is that they need great people to bring, to develop that idea, because they'll find someone who's, an expert in that certain field or whatever it is. So never being, I suppose, the getting in the way.
Oh, you just froze for a moment.
Sorry.
Yes.
So I was just saying, it's like, yeah, you don't want to let your ego get in the way and think that you know you're best at everything. When entrepreneurs have over the years, you've clearly had great ideas, and then the ones that develop that idea to its maximum are the ones that then bring in the people around them to develop that idea, because they've got the expertise in certain areas that person may not have. And unfortunately, if people have that view that they know everything, then they tend to find that they don't know everything. If you know what I mean.
Yeah. Again, that's completely right. Yeah. And I think you learn these things over a period of time. You become more aware of of your own, of what you are yourself, and how what you contribute,
Yeah.
and the value of other people. Another thing I really believe in is you always give people credit.
Yeah.
I mean, I've worked in environments in the past where there's people trying to claim credit for everything, and it just causes.
Yeah.
If somebody does something good, tell them. Say thank you. Say well done. And that applies right across the spectrum, from the best people to the people doing the less glamorous work in the business. It's everybody's part of a team and a structure. And everybody contributes to making things happen.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. Yeah, no, the power of the simple things is quite under what's the word? People don't realize that how important those little things can be, and they take no time, but they mean a lot. When, like you say, just a simple thank you to someone who's done a good job and stuff, things like that. People just underestimate how important and impactful those things can be in building that kind of team culture, for sure. Absolutely. So what, talking about thinking about what would your best bit of advice for someone we kind of mentioned it maybe already, but it might be something else you can think of as well. But what would be your best bit of advice for someone or a young person who's starting up in business?
Yeah, I think I like this question because I think if you've got a drive and an ambition and something that you really believe in, you've got to stick at it.
Yep.
But it's you only stick at it if other people actually believe in your idea as well, because you've got to get that validation. It's the same with a classic case of inventions. There's loads of brilliant inventions that are fatally flawed by one little thing, and it's the same with an idea. If you've got an idea that you believe is a good one, get the the validation from other people who know, and if other people think it's a good idea, stick with it and work at it and drive, and don't be frightened to change course. You're still on the same journey, but you thought you were going that way. You might need to go that way or that way, or round in a bit of a loop to get where you need to be. So, but it's being, you start with your idea, and then it becomes a sort of an organic evolutionary process.
Yeah.
I never thought when I started designing engines, I wanted to go in racing cars because I was a young man interested in going fast. It's and now the powering generators for the poorest farmers in Africa. So I'm far happier than doing that than winning a Grand Prix or something.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, every journey, is never a straight line, is it? It will always go in different directions. But I say it's about being able to pivot and adapt. But ultimately, the key concept is the driver of it all. But yeah, you just need to be adaptable and work it because at the end of the day, like you say, you want it to be commercially viable to grow that business, from where you've got it to where, that initial seed of an idea to, growing it into a business that, can deliver the kind of opportunities that you want. So yeah, no, some great advice there. Yeah, really, really good.
Yeah. Another thing I think is important is just focus on the things that are really important. Don't think, people are going to judge me by what car I drive, or spend your money on the things that are going to make things happen. You don't necessarily need to be in a big fancy office, but it depends on what your business is. But certainly as an engineering business, you want the basic functional facilities that allow you to do your job.
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
And then the final thing that I've only ever worked for one, sort of one boss when I was in my early 20s, and he always used to say, "Out of adversity cometh advantage." So use your problems to strengthen, who you are and what you do. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Mindset is a massive thing, yeah, because you're always going to come across in any business, you're always going to come across challenge and days where you're, feeling, is it the right thing? Have I done the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? And having that, longer term, it is the right thing, to have. And it kind of takes you on to the next question about kind of obviously being a business owner for a long period of time. What kind of things inspire you, when you're, or have inspired you over the years to do what you're doing?
I think it's just a sense of wanting to achieve something, and I think it's all the little bit. I never bask in what's happened previously. I always want to move on to the next thing. So,
Sure.
once you've solved one problem, there's the next one. You
Yeah.
climb your ladder.
Cool.
And it's getting to the top of the. You'll never get to the top of the ladder, but keep climbing the ladder, and the ladder is, necessarily, personal ambition. It's more doing something that works and does a job. Um,
Great to have talk to someone who's got something that they're clearly incredibly passionate about. It's not just about the business. There's a bigger element to it, and especially in the day and age we are now, where these kind of obviously it's a massive talking point, and as you said yourself, that people are so much more environmentally aware of what's going on, the potential of if we don't make significant changes, what the potential is for the future generations. So it's great to hear a story of someone who's obviously believed in that for a long time, and bringing the opportunity for people to make some real significant change in something that will have quite a lot, will have a long lasting effect on the world. It's a massive kind of, when you start taking it out to that level, it's incredible what you could potentially do to have that positive impact.
and it's really just from a simple premise that if a combustion engine is really useful, but if it's going to have a future, it has to be really clean. And it's just then how you get from delivering power with minimal environmental impact at an affordable price. And it's a really simple. But if you look at it from a different perspective to most other people, you come up with different solutions.
Right, fantastic. Really, really great. Some great stuff. Yeah, thanks for some really interesting points you've made today. Really interested to hear the journey and how Cage Technologies is looking to grow. So, if you want to find out a bit more about the business and what you're trying to achieve, and what's the best place to visit or get in contact with you guys?
Yeah, so cagetechnologies.co.uk is our website. So, always send an email from the web link. And just happy to talk and help other people solve their problems if we can.
100%. No, so as you say, so something that's very top of mind. ULEZ down in London, couldn't have asked for anything more about emissions, about the two sides of that argument going on at the moment. So it's a very topical point, but it's great to hear about people that are bringing the opportunity in the organisation and the technology to help drive that forward. So by me, as I say, get on the web, have a look at your website, and get a better understanding of what you're doing. Would be fantastic. So brilliant. All right, Paul, it's been great to talk to you. Thanks so much for your time. Good luck for what you're trying to achieve and what you're doing. And thanks again. Cheers now.
Yeah, really appreciate it. Yeah, thank you, Rob. Yeah, bye now.
Bye.